It's the Too Dumb to Quit podcast with Jeremy McCall. He's dumb, way too dumb to even quit. So, he has his own podcast now.
What's up, friends? Welcome to the 2Dumb2Quit podcast with your old pal Hopalong Jeremy here at the old radio ranch. I'm getting eye rolls already. Hey, so this podcast is dedicated to the mindset and life philosophies of successful people, their stories, the mental anguish, and the perseverance of badass people through tough and difficult industries, and which is every industry right now because the world is shut down. But today, I'm very excited. We are 9 feet apart. He's in the front of the bus. I'm in the back of the bus. I've got a good friend of mine. He has introduced me to so much stuff, become a bit of a mentor and a great friend. But he's a Navy veteran. He got his BA and his MBA and is a founding partner in a handful of successful companies, including being the COO of Radius, which is a radiology technology service. Is that correct? Am I explaining that?
We host radiology services.
Okay.
Software.
And we're going to get all into that. But as I understand it, it encrypts x-rays and things like that. So you get your x-ray done, it gets to your doctor before you can even get back to the house. So it's instant. The guy is also a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, which is the most important thing,
yes,
which I happen to believe. And is very uncomfortable with the spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Mr. Jason Strickland. What's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you doing?
Good. It seems like forever since I've seen you.
Yeah. 4 hours, 5 hours?
At least 4 or 5 hours. So Jason, I've been doing a lot of strength training with Jason. He's very strong. I am not strong. And a lot of jiu-jitsu training. So we are part of the same jiu-jitsu team. And he's actually an owner in that as well with the Legion Jiu-Jitsu and with Rev Training here in Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is a great gym you guys should check out. But I wanted to bring in Jason to talk a lot about your background, where you come from, and your process through creating companies, creating business, sustaining, persevering, especially in times like this when I think a lot of people are looking around just going, I don't really know what to do right now. And I think there's a lot up in the air. But getting your background, you grew up like here, right? Hendersonville?
I grew up in Smith County. It's about an hour and a half from here on a farm.
Smith County, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Tobacco farm?
Tobacco, cows, pigs.
So what's the tobacco process like as a kid? Like you're growing up on a farm. You're doing it with your dad, right?
Dad, brother.
Everybody.
Yeah.
All hands
Neighbors.
on deck. And so you're raising livestock as well? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So livestock, what's the tobacco process like? Because I grew up in the Northwest. There is no tobacco process other than getting them when you're 13 and smoking them immediately.
It's year round. It's never ending. It's,
really?
For a young person to teenager, it's no fun at all because it's a lot of hard work. And it goes from blistering in the summer to freezing in the winter when you're stripping and pressing it.
So it starts so if it's springtime, are you cutting it then?
You're planting it.
Planting it, okay.
And then you cut it in the summer, August, when it's blistering hot. Then you hang it in the barn. I can't remember, probably a month or so, maybe a little bit longer till it gets crisp and hardened.
Can you right now where you're sitting smell the tobacco barns on your property growing up?
Yeah. Tobacco worms. That was big green, thick worms.
Really?
Just, it takes me back to a bad place.
Smell good or no? Like if you smell tobacco now, are you like, home?
Can't stand it.
Or you're just
Can't stand it. Can't stand it.
Shit smells like work.
Yeah.
So you do that and then you hang it in tobacco barns. Mm-hmm. And how it hangs in there for 6 or 8 months, and then
not that long. Okay. Maybe a couple of months. And then you go in there. So if you can imagine a 3-story barn, you go in there, you hang it. So when you open the doors, there's nothing but tobacco, and then you go in there and you bring it, you get it down, and you just start stripping it.
Okay.
It's a long process.
By hand. And then, do you guys process it, or is that something where you're selling it to someone who then takes it to like Marlboro or?
Back in the 80s, you would you basically take it to the tobacco barn, and then they would come, depending on the price of tobacco, they would say, this is how much we're giving you for this. And back then it was really good money.
Yeah.
Then when the government got involved
Sure.
and started controlling everything, then that's when we got out of it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's always interesting. The government gets involved and everything shrinks.
For sure.
In Idaho, where I'm from, the government owns all of the liquor stores, which miraculously have not been closed during the coronavirus. It's essential.
Well, it's essential here in Tennessee, too.
Yeah, it's essential. Yeah. But, yeah, you can't own a liquor store in Idaho. The state owns all of them.
I didn't know that.
It's crazy. So you go from tobacco fields as you come through. You went to school. Where'd you go to college at?
Tribeca.
Tribeca.
I went into the Navy before I went to college.
Oh, you did?
Because I wasn't mature enough
to
go to college. So went in the Navy in 1990, spent 4 years in the Navy, then got out to get money to go to college.
What's your job in the Navy?
I was a medic diver.
Okay.
So I was basically an EMT kind of.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So you went to basic training in Great Lakes or San Diego? Orlando.
In July.
Oh, okay, in July.
It's closed. They closed it. I can't remember what year, but it was hot.
I bet. Orlando in July is miserable.
Boot camp physically wasn't that hard. I mean, surprisingly, it was mostly classroom.
Yeah.
That was tough, staying up and listening.
And then so you go to your tech school, your A school or whatever, and then go in 4 years. How many times were you overseas? Were you stationed somewhere a majority of the time? Or?
I was stationed. My home base was lovely Norfolk, Virginia, and I did. If you're on the East Coast, you would do what was called med cruises. So you go in the Mediterranean, Italy. Spent some time in the United Arab Emirates.
What's that like?
Surprisingly, back then it was most like the United States.
Really?
It was real. I mean, it's
modern
oil,
a lot of money.
But Naples, Italy, we spent a lot of time there. That wasn't they were kind of prehistoric back then.
Really?
From the United States.
Sure.
The military made me really understand that we were super blessed in the United States.
Yeah. I can't imagine every time I talk to you guys who have served, it's always amazing. I've done just a couple of small USO things, and the things that with Korea and Japan, where you're just like, wow, this is it's crazy. And looking at all the things that you have in America and all of the opportunity that's here versus. Yeah.
Well, we have mutual friend Anthony and Sean. Mm-hmm. Those guys, when you talk about serving, I never felt my life was threatened in the military.
Sure.
I was in the Navy. I was on a ship.
Right.
But hear some of Anthony's stories.
Right.
And Sean's about just being
wartime in the desert.
Yeah.
Crazy shit.
Yeah. I mean, I had air conditioning. Hot
but
coach
it's sacrifice and it's commitment.
Made me grow up for sure.
Patriotism. Yeah. You told me a story, and I love this story when you were on the ship, and that you guys in thick fog would have to go out and stand. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
You'd have to go on the front of how big of a ship is this? Number one, is this
I was on the USS Shenandoah, so it was about 375 feet long. Okay. And we had...
So a little longer than my bus that we're on right now.
Slightly. They would call it low vis, so low visibility. When the fog would come in, back then there was no GPS. On our ship we didn't have it. It was just radar. So when fog comes in, radar is not very useful. So we would have to go out. One guy would have headphones, and the other guy would just be looking and listening. And pitch black, and if you've ever been at sea, I mean, I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
Just being out there and hearing the ship cutting through the water. But on low vis, you really couldn't go very fast because you didn't really know exactly where you were.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very prehistoric looking back of how probably dangerous it was for us. But, I mean, we made it work. But
you have to tell the story.
So we left Norfolk, and we're doing like some trials. And then we thought we were coming up, like heading north up the East Coast. Knew we were somewhere around, I think it was Boston, or I can't remember exactly where it was. But so they called low vis out, and it's like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
So, waking us up, we go out there. Probably not the most positive attitudes when we're out there.
Cold,
and just at sea, it's cold.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing breaking the wind.
Sure.
So we're out there. This guy was with me, and he has the headphones on, and he can't take the headphones on, so therefore he really can't hear anything.
Right.
I'm listening and hearing, and I kept hearing this train whistle.
You're at sea, hearing a train whistle.
And, at first I'm just thinking it's wind.
Sure.
And then I keep telling him, I'm like, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I'm like, hey, Jeremy, I'm hearing a train whistle. And he's like, quit messing around, man. Because he had to report anything I said.
So anything you say to this guy, he's got to tell the captain of the ship.
Well, whoever's the officer in charge. So
okay.
it's usually a lieutenant, somebody pretty young. So I keep telling him, and he was like, quit messing around. And I was like, I hear this train. It sounds like it's getting loud. And then he just keeps refusing, and I'm like, just take the headphones off. And so we're in the very front of the ship, so everybody up, the guys that are, I can't even remember what it was called, the quarterdeck, not the quarterdeck, where they drive the ship. They could, there's lights out there, and they can see us. And he just thought when he took those headphones off, he's going to get in a lot of trouble. And he pulled them off, and he could hear. And I was like, report it. And so he reports it. The ensign or lieutenant that he reported it to, like, lost their mind. Like, y'all quit messing around.
Because if you report something, they have to stop, right? They have to, like, stop
We're not
immediately.
going very fast, but you got to drop the anchor. When you drop an anchor, everybody's getting up.
Right.
And people are getting in trouble if it was for no reason. And what had happened was we had somehow got turned where we were heading inland, and there was this, they dropped the anchor trying to figure out where we were. So by this time, the sun, it's about to come up, and so we probably waited for 2 hours maybe. And I mean, that's a big deal. You stop a naval ship from moving because
you hear
think
a train.
Somebody's joking around.
Right.
And
so you got pissed off officers. and
losing their mind.
Yeah.
And because when he came down there, guess what? There's no train whistle or anything.
Of course.
And the guy that reported it, I mean, he's livid with me thinking, well, you just got me in trouble. And we'd gotten turned, and we were heading inland, and there was this railroad trestle going over the water. So we were going, with the tracks, and then somehow we slowly were just veering, slow turn. And come to find out, the quartermaster who was plotting the course or whatever they had gotten mixed up, and they thought we were heading slowly veering out to sea.
Oh my gosh.
Slowly veering
into a train trestle.
Yeah. So got a lot of attaboys for that kind of stuff. But
I love that, because I think so many times people get caught up on what other people think, like, I can't, even though in their mind it's the right thing to do, or this is, hey, dude, take the headphones off. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I attribute that story to, where it's like sticking with your freaking guns, because
it's it served me well, but also there's a cost to doing that, because you alienate people, because
Sure.
when people want you to go along with a certain way of thinking, and sometimes I just like to be difficult, especially if I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Sure.
That could probably be a little difficult
Yeah.
to deal with. You know that.
I do. Yeah. So, but I think that story, like I was talking to you the other morning about this Jocko story that I heard him say when he was in Bud's training, and this guy said, "I think I'm falling by the wayside," and Jocko's going, "I don't know what that means," and then the guy quit, and he said, "Be careful about the language you use with yourself to allow yourself to quit." And the other morning, I literally used that to get out of bed at 4:45 in the morning to go work out with you. But it's one of those things where, like, that story will stick with me forever of, like, man, just stick to your gut, the train whistle. You know what I mean? I take those little things and attribute to perseverance and doing the right thing, and no matter what other people think, So you go through the Navy. I get sidetracked on your stories because it's good. You go through the Navy, you get out, you go to college,
Right.
get your BA. What's your bachelor's in?
Business.
And then your MBA.
Yes, I took the LSAT. I was going to go to law school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and at that, I was married, kids, and really I looked at to see, okay,
You would be a great lawyer.
If I went to law school, it was going to be 4 years,
Right.
night school.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy that had just graduated, and and I saw how tough it was for him, and then I knew I could get my MBA in 2 years of night school, and I'm glad I chose the business side of that.
I think you would have been fine either way. But so you go through that. Explain the process when you get out. Like, when you get out of college with an MBA, what's the thought process? Did you have the business? Did you have a business plan when you came out? Do you have a direction? Do you have a course set? Or
at that point, when I got my MBA, let's call that probably, it was 1999 maybe. I was the executive director for a nonprofit, the Court Appointed Special Advocate Program, and I was able to use kind of that business background in the nonprofit world, where back then you didn't see a lot of that as far as raising money and using data-driven information. But really, I thought that was just getting my MBA. I thought I would know everything about business, and it's just not.
Right.
You learn about business. The smartest business guy I've ever been around doesn't even have a high school education. Like,
are you talking about me right now? Thank you very much. Wow.
You are smart. You're smart.
Shit.
But, I always tell anybody, going to school is great if that's what your thing.
Yeah.
But like the smartest business that I would put up against anybody, of how he can look at things and look at problems and come up with solutions, financial solutions. He has a GED.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
So, and I know a lot of really dumb people that have MBAs.
Yeah.
And it comes down to me is just your thought process and decision making, and not being, what I like about you is there's no ego with you.
Yeah.
And the more people have ego, I think the worse decisions they make a lot of times.
Yeah, I try really. The ego thing, I think, is just such a. I talk about it on here all the time. I think it's just such a killer. It's a momentum killer. It's a relationship killer. It's and especially like you get into, like, I mean, I have a business with my best friend, and I was really worried about that when you go into that, because you're like, well, if this blows up, 25 years of friendship. And then I'm like, well, why would it blow? Maybe the business fails, but it shouldn't translate into our personal relationship unless there's a massive ego involved, and thankfully on our end there isn't. But it's something that I try to read about a lot because I want to be like guys like you, and I want to be like guys like Anthony and Sean, who you were talking about earlier, who are both military guys who are involved in jiu-jitsu too, which is why I was really driven to jiu-jitsu, because it is an ego remover.
For sure.
If you think that you're the best guy on the mat, you just wait till the next roll, because somebody will stomp your ass, and that's what I love about it. It's like music. You're never going to know everything, and I think that's such an amazing thing. It's such a powerful thing, especially when it comes to business or it comes to, I think now in situations when you get outside of jiu-jitsu, if you've been choked at 7:00 in the morning, it teaches you to breathe through stuff that doesn't matter.
I think jiu-jitsu, you get ego choked out of you every day.
Yeah.
And it's, and I'm sure there's some of the big time guys.
Yeah.
They, I would say they probably have a little ego, but it's, you see Steve Duncan, just, jiu-jitsu brings together just a vast array of personalities and, socio-economical. Everything.
Yeah. And it's like America on a mat. Yeah. It really is.
And then when you get on the mats, nobody cares what you do I can't really think of a time where anybody had any, it's like everybody gets along.
Yeah.
It's
amazing. Well, it's such a palate cleanser because you cannot be thinking about anything else while that's happening. You can't be worried about what's going to happen later in the day, or worried about what you said to your girlfriend the night before, or whatever. Because there is no, if you worry about anything outside of the person who has their arm around your neck, you're going to get choked out.
When last August I went to Worlds, and my business partner went with me.
Worlds, for people who aren't in jiu-jitsu, is a world. It's a competition that they do in Las Vegas and explain that process too. Like the competition, do you have to qualify for Worlds?
No. You just have to show up. You sign up, and it's IBJJF.
Okay.
And it's
International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Foundation, right? Yeah.
You show up, sign up, show up, and it's about it's a whole week.
Okay.
You don't compete that whole time. Usually, my division was done in a day.
Uh-huh.
But but my point to that was there's thousands of people there for this competition from all over the world. And my business partner, who doesn't do jiu-jitsu, he went with me because we need to go see a data center out there in Las Vegas. And he just kept commenting on, he's like, everybody is so nice. And I told him, I said, that's just the jiu-jitsu world. It's like everybody has a gun, everybody's dangerous.
It's a polite society.
Yeah. And just like, he just kept saying, it's just, everybody's just so nice.
Yeah. Well, and there's such a respect to it too. I never thought in my life that I would get choked by somebody or submitted by someone, my arm wrenched in an arm bar, and then get up and be excited for the person who hit it. Like, dude, that was awesome. Yeah. Right. It's like you really feel that in that community around it. And Checkmat is the Legion team here in Tennessee that Jason is also an owner in. And there's 3 gyms currently. Right. They've got the Hendersonville, Tennessee gym. They've got the Nashville gym, and then the Murfreesboro gym. And you guys have been adding professors, black belts to the team, and a lot of really exciting stuff happening with your team there too, which is it's awesome to be a part of it. It's awesome to watch it from the mat, just as a student, and it's just such a cool thing to see that happen. When you get into that kind of, and I want to get back around to you getting into Radius and creating that, but like when you look at times that we're in right now and you see, because you've got so many different ends of the spectrum, like with what you do with Radius and the amount of things you deal with in Radius versus, what would be, a small business when it comes to, 3 gyms, which is growing exponentially, and then Rev Training, which is growing exponentially. But you've got, this huge medical company that you're a part of, and then you've got these gyms. What's the main difference you're seeing, like in this quarantine and in the hardships that you're seeing versus, you know what I mean? Like,
well, in the medical world, software, we've always said when we started Radius in the end of 2009, it was probably the worst time you could start a business, coming off a huge recession.
Yeah.
We came up with a different pricing model. But the medical world is, I would say, pretty recession proof.
Mm-hmm.
What we went through here recently is people they wanted to stay away, so they wouldn't get the, mammograms, just the general stuff that you normally would get. So
sure.
In March, we have customers all over the United States, so I can get a good feel of what it's doing all over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Some customers were hit 70%, like, the memo-only groups. But hospitals, they were probably about 40%.
Yeah.
So it's, for us, though, you have to have software. They have to have software and be able to get to the internet and their servers. And so, they keep paying.
Right.
Now,
is it business as usual then?
Pretty much for us.
Workflow slows because electives maybe are down or things like that.
Our number of tickets coming in kind of went down. That's usually how we judge, if it's an industry-wide thing, if, tickets are pretty constant. And, the last 2 weeks started picking back up. So it's, especially in that world, it's turning around for sure.
Yeah.
From the gym side, FitRev, we had to completely close down that and Legion. So, that was tough. Well, but we'll make it through it. It's just,
Is there a mindset you have from being involved, of going from the Navy, of coming in and creating Radius, and knowing with your experience of what you have in your revenue generating, the things that you do, you're a numbers guy. It's like being around you for 20 minutes. It's just like you can see it. And I love your process and the way that you look at things, which I want to get into too. But is there something that you take from that going into this mindset wise, philosophically wise, or just looking at that and going like, obviously, okay, monetarily, financially, we're going to come through this. We're going to come out on the other end. We're just going to figure it out. But is there a mindset going into it that puts, that is something you look at it a certain way that might help other people that might not have that experience going into it?
I think for me, it's always people, process, product. Mm-hmm. If you have all 3 of those, you're going to be successful in whatever you do. Usually if you have 2 of those, you're going to be successful. I'm always, telling anybody around me, we just got to keep moving forward. You can't stop. Because in business, if your business isn't growing, there's no just steady.
Middle ground.
As far as you're either growing or you're dying. That's what I've seen. And, I'm more of, I always look at the data and try to make adjustments based on data. But, I want to be clear, several people grew Radius and continue to grow it to what it
Sure.
is. It's in same with Fit Rev and Legion. I'm a big swim lane guy. You know, if you go into business with somebody, it's good to go into business that you can disagree with people and they have a different skill set than you do. And therefore, you don't step on each other's toes.
Right.
And to me, that's the biggest thing is people, process, and product. As far as, you know, you got good people, you got good processes in place, and you have something that people want, you'll, now there's levels of success in all of that, but, you know, to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And not being a micromanager. Like, I'm probably the other end of micromanagement, whatever that is. I just really, you know, if I hire you, I want you to know there's a reason why I hired you, and it's not for me to tell you what to do every day. And, you know, you can come to me, and you know me, I'm an open book. If you come to me and it's probably something I think's dumb, I'm probably going to...
Right. Yeah, you're a no bullshit guy. That's what I like about it.
But I don't believe in micromanaging.
Yeah.
I was at a place where it was overboard with that, and I thought I'll never be like that.
Right.
And you know, you got people. Just surround yourself with good people that you trust. Like when we hire people, I rarely look at a resume. If I can hire somebody that I know or somebody else knows, and they can say they're a good person, especially in the worlds that I deal with, I'd rather hire them. I'd rather take a chance on them because at least you know their personality. You can teach most anything. Right. But, you know, I dealt with developers and IT guys for a long time. Be some weird cookies.
Well, and again, though, that's your point, though, is data, looking at the data. And so if you've got somebody who's going like, hey, this guy's really cool, he's a hard worker, he doesn't know shit about what you're doing, but if you teach him, he'll be here every day. And, I mean, it's your process. And I think, too, that's such an important thing for people that are creating something. And I think and I know once I got to know you a little bit, your 3 Ps, you know, which you should just copyright and turn into a book, but people, product, and process, of going through that, we implemented it in our club in Idaho, and then realized as we were doing it, it had been implemented, it just hadn't really been put out that way to our employees, where it's like, hey, there's a reason you're all here. There's a reason that we wanted you to be a part of this in this family. And so if you were creating a business right now, if you were someone who was looking at walking into this, which you guys did, you know, and obviously, you know, with your venture, whether it be Legion or FitRev or Radius, there's a team involved that goes into that. And I love the other thing about just staying in your swim lane, because again, that goes with ego, and I just can only relate it to what I know, which, like with our bar, Bob is great at alcohol and bartenders, and that is not my thing. I'm good at the marketing side, and then getting the bands in and doing that. And so it removes the ego if you go, I'm just stay in my lane. Bob's got his thing, I got my thing, we do it, and we never have had any issues in the entire time that we've had it. And so staying in your lane, if you were coming into a business right now, what would your first steps be into it right now? I mean, if you were creating something.
Well, I'll be 49 this month. I really would want to just be the money guy. I'd rather give, you know, I love giving input on things, but starting a business and, you know, from FitRev perspective, let's talk about the gym. Jason Santiago is the guy that's grown it to what it is.
Yeah.
In Legion, Gabriel, Sean, Logan, and anybody that helps instruct, they're the ones that have grown it. You could probably ask most people not in the morning class, they don't even know I'm involved in Legion or in Fit Rev. And that's totally fine for me. I'd rather be in the background and people don't complain if they don't
right.
But I don't, I just think it's now, if you can just keep moving forward and have a good business plan and just work hard every day, because people are going to tell you no, or your idea is not any good, and the people that tell you that are people that don't have businesses. They it's easy to say to kind of crap on your idea, but I think anybody that starts a business, and from small to that turns into something huge. That's I love watching Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Or The Prophet, to see how
The Prophet gives me anxiety. I can't watch Prophet.
I love The Prophet. But just to entrepreneurs that just look at you, of what you do. You travel around the world and entertain, and you don't stop. You don't when you have pity parties, it's just not proactive. It doesn't get you anything. And, and surrounding yourself with good people, that would be the thing. You can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And I'm not a super motivator of people. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
I'm more of a real world, and because that's how I want people to talk to me. I don't need people to really, come on, Jason, let's get this.
Right.
That's not, you see when we work out, you're constantly talking, and I rarely say anything.
I get some eye cuts. Like, will you shut up?
Well, it's not that. It's just, I know that's what you like doing.
Yeah.
And I think starting a business, you have to have a pretty good, a good attitude, a good outlook on things, and not get sidetracked. Because when you start a business, if your business is selling iPhone cases, I would say just sell iPhone cases until you get that process down.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of people say, well, why don't you sell this with it, or this screen protector with it? And
sure.
With Radius, that's over the years, that's people would try to get us to snap on different things. And, the first 3 years, we just wanted to do what we do, and that be the only thing we do like that. Where you don't get, it's not a shiny, especially in the software world, in the computer world, like, you change courses in the middle, that costs a lot of money.
Right.
And if we look at Legion in Jiu-Jitsu and Gabriel and how he, how we decided to do all this with Legion, Gabriel had just helped, he was just helping out. And we were in the locker room after class one day, and he was just talking about how he'd like to have his own gym and stuff. And I knew Sean from the old UFC gym, and I just started thinking, man, these two together will be, dynamite.
Yeah.
And all it took was just a little bit of money, and myself and Brandon Shea and Michael Allen kind of
awesome.
Got together, and but they're the guys, they're the ones that make it happen. It's grown to
and 4. It's two totally separate outlooks, two totally separate exteriors when it comes to just like Sean it doesn't take long to realize that Sean was a Special Forces team leader. Yeah. It comes out very quickly. Not because he's saying it, because of how he speaks, because of how there's so much energy in the room with him. There's so much, look, here's what we're doing. And because you look at those instances, Sean, I'm guessing at many points, was probably talking to groups of men who were going out with a high chance that some of them weren't coming back. Yeah. You know, so you have to sell that mission of here's where we're going, you know. And he's a motivator, you know, his leadership stuff he's doing now, the podcast stuff he's doing.
Talk to anybody that's worked for him. I mean,
loves him.
Yes.
Yes.
And, you know, like, I couldn't be Sean. I couldn't give, like, if we were about to go out and possibly somebody I'm going to give the facts. I'm like, well, some of you guys probably.
Hey, before we go out, here's the statistics on everybody coming back.
And I can't help. It's one of those things where I like, don't say it, and then I got to say it because I feel like I'm letting you down.
It's your process. Yeah. It's data, and then Gabriel is like it's like when I think of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's the picture that comes to my mind because he is that guy. You know, he came from that world of and I know there's different names for it. I learned that actually from Professor Roscoe the other day. Where they were talking about gi and no gi in Brazil. Yeah. There's a name for no gi, and I can't remember it.
I'd never heard it before.
And it was literally like, well, guys that can afford gis, they go gi. Right. And guys that can't afford gis go this way, which is essentially no gi. And so it's just a great illustration of building the right team. When, as an investor, when you look at things, if people are putting together plans and looking for angel investors, people putting together things, looking for sponsors or endorsements, things like that. What do you look for when it comes to investing? When people are talking about like, hey, here's our business plan. What's your thoughts? We need this amount of money.
Well, if they ask me what my thoughts are, they're going to get my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I guess the biggest thing I would look at first and foremost is who is the person. Like, I'm not going to be involved in somebody that, like, as an investor, that I don't like. Mm-hmm. I don't care what the idea really is because it's usually with most investments, the initial amount you invest is not going to be all you're going to invest. And, you know, then so it'd be the person I'm a big relationship person.
Yeah.
And it's, and I've been asked to invest in a few things where I thought were pretty good ideas, but I just didn't, the person pitching it, I get that you got to believe in it.
Yeah.
But when you start poking holes in, okay, well, in this financial model, why, I don't even understand how you get from here in year 1 to year 3, you get to this number. And when they start trying to, well, this is going to happen, like they're predicting the future.
Right.
You know, that's...
which you see on Shark Tank a lot.
Yeah,
where those holes get poked.
I mean, I love that show.
Yeah. It's great.
But people, I mean, everything to me comes down to people. If I'm a very loyal person, but I don't, it takes me a little bit to get to know somebody.
Sure.
But people, and then the idea, like, you know, ideally for me, that's where I'd love to get is to be that angel investor and just giving, you know, feedback of, like, that's why I want Gabriel and Sean to just, for them to realize, I'm always telling Gabriel, like, he's so appreciative. Sean is too.
Yeah.
But Gabriel's like overboard appreciative of telling me this or that. And I just say, look, you're going to replicate this. You're going to do this for somebody else one day. And it's, and if we all can do that, you know, to get people to just pay that forward.
Yeah. Want to achieve their dreams. And I mean, to be able to do that when your dream is to have your own gym and that comes to fruition, and then you have something like what's happened with the Legion team where you've got the right people, you've got the right product, you have the right process, the great coaches, and now the gym is growing. Now you're three gyms in one market, and the gyms aren't big enough now. Because you're getting so many new students, and it's just such a great thing to see. And then to be that, pay it forward. Hey, you're going to do this for somebody else, and that begins to, it's a drop in the bucket that goes out.
Just think how Gabriel came to the United States, spoke no English, learned to speak English on Netflix by
That's
putting
crazy.
on what is it, where the words pop up?
The closed captioning. That's unbelievable. Now, some people would say I learned English from Eddie Murphy Delirious with my charmingly off-color nature. But so, is there a certain way you like to see things? You like to see it in a spreadsheet? You like to see it in a business plan? You like to see it in a presentation? If somebody is literally like, I want to put this together, I want to start a clothing brand, and I don't know how to start. What's the first step of putting that together?
Me, I want to hear the idea, but in a Cliff Notes version.
Sure.
Like my attention span is very small.
Yeah.
But I can look at numbers, and I'd like to hear a kind of overview of what you're wanting to do, and then let me look at the numbers, and then come back with questions. That's ideally, that's how I would like to do it.
Yeah.
I've been through due diligence, where, somebody's buying you or you're buying somebody. And, I've learned a lot from that process of where somebody was getting, wanting to start a company where I could use that, because that's very good information of knowing, okay, you want to stage this. So day one, you're just starting it, but you need to be thinking when you want to sell it, what's your out in this? Is it
right.
You just want it to be producing income for you, you want to sell it in 5 years, 10 years, and that's where I would challenge somebody to be thinking about that. What is your long-term goal? Do you want to pass this on, or do you just want to sell it? And if you want to sell it, okay, here's things that who potential buyers are going to be looking for, and it's
build backwards.
Yeah,
almost.
And I wouldn't have known that 2 years ago as far as that due diligence process.
Yeah.
16's the first due diligence I went through, but it's a very frustrating time, especially if people are doing due diligence on you.
Right.
And it, because nobody understands your business like you do.
Sure.
And then when somebody's going to try to buy you, you got to try to make them understand it close to what you do,
right.
or you'll never get the value of it.
Sure.
I think, if you're starting a business, what is your goal? Is it to, with this, is your goal one day to sell the bus and all that, or are you going to do this forever?
Right.
So I think I could ask a lot of good questions for somebody, just for them to be thinking. I'll help this one person, lady, start a company, and she's a dreamer, but really, you need that. You need those, but you need somebody like me too to say, hey, that's great, but how are we going to build 50,000 widgets every month? We don't even,
right.
And that's where go back to staying in your swim lane, because if you're really good at singing and I'm really good at doing contracts and getting you gigs,
I don't need to be in the contract process.
Right.
Right.
And
Exactly.
You just need to trust me, and I'll trust you. And
then I think not taking things personally too,
for sure,
is such a big thing of because if you're doing the contracts and I'm doing the shows, eventually there's going to be a disagreement somewhere where it's like, hey, what the hell happened here? You know, and it's like, well, look, I had it here. Well, you have that. And then whatever's said in that, it can't be personal. You know, it's just the business of the contract and the singer, not the human. And I think separating that is something I had to learn, you know, where it's like, oh, when I got bitched at about, you know, well, I thought we were doing this. Well, it didn't work out. And it wasn't so much about me as a human. It was that I dropped the ball on it. And as long as I could accept that and go, you know what, I really kind of screwed this up. So I'm really sorry. And now I know going forward that I can self-correct this, you know, and move on from there. But that's such a huge part, I think, is not taking it personally.
My business partner, Radius, Ken, he's so smart and he's so good from a sales perspective and just big time thinker, not so good at details, but that's what I'm there for. He can let me vent about things, and he's a master at it because I can't keep things in.
Sure.
I've got to tell you.
Yeah.
But once I tell you, how you respond, as long as you listen to me, you can say, I don't agree with it, Jason, blah, 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 or I'm fine.
Right.
And like, if I have to talk to people at work, and not as much now because I don't do as much of that, but I mean, I could say, Jeremy, you know, you can't let this happen again, and, you know, kind of go through the facts of what happened. But then I can say, now, after this conversation, as long as you course correct, I won't think about this anymore.
Right.
But you can't dwell on it, and you've got to let it go.
Right.
Because especially as you're coming up, you're going to get some criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people that can't take criticism don't last very long. They're going to job hop, and they're going to, you know, it's always somebody else's fault.
Right.
But if you can just say, you know what, you're right, like you said, to me, that means everything. If, you know, just accepting, because the facts say, you deleted this data.
Right. Yeah.
There's a trail that says Jeremy McCone did this. And you can say, well, I was tired or whatever else. You know, at the end of the day, I'm having to pay for that.
Right.
So just own it.
Own it.
But that's
well, I think that goes with the no ego too, because you have to strip that away to be able to see the reality of it, you know. And Ryan Holiday talks about it all the time, where he says, it's ego is the artifice. It's what you want to hear. It's what you want to see in the mirror. And if you can strip that away to see, like, I'm not very good at this. I'm not good at that. I'm going to try to get better at it. Or I'm going to work at, you know, I'm going to practice. It's jiu-jitsu for me on my left side. I'm terrible on my left. And so I think finding those things, I'm not very good on my right either, but working at it. But I think just applying those to your process, the business, I think is such a big thing. And being able to remove yourself a little bit from it and say, this isn't about me, you know.
If you can handle constructive criticism, you know, Heather that works with me, you know, everybody kind of reports up through her, and she can kind of handle me, because I'm going to tell you, and I'm not always as
she's
eloquent.
A good buffer.
Yes, for sure. And you know, and people will come to her and say, "Hey, we need this. Can I call Jason directly about this?" And she's always like, "No, you would never want to call him about this."
Right. That might not be a good idea.
But she can handle if I, you know, say, "Look, you jacked this up. And you got to get," and she doesn't make excuses. She just goes and takes care of it. And that's the biggest thing with me, is if you can, I'm kind of hard to handle. Like, you're going to know where you stand with me.
Sure.
everybody says they want that, but I'm here to tell you about 22% of people really want that. Because I've got a thick skin. You could tell me whatever.
Yeah.
And I could say, oh, no, you misread that. That was not what I meant.
Right.
Or, yeah, I mean, would you disagree with that?
Right.
Kind of so.
Do you want to have a conversation about it? Well, that is awesome. Friends and neighbors, big thanks to my buddy, Jason Strickland. And what would you, going out of this, was there a hard time? Was there a time? It would shock me if there was ever a time where you were just ground floor of like, I don't think I can do this just because of your outlook. Like you going off of data and you being very analytical when it comes to being able to say, well, this is just how it is. Has there been, what's been the biggest struggle, and how did you pull through that when you're maybe coming up? I mean, obviously, Radius being 21 years in the business now, but I mean, as you guys were all growing that, was there portions of that where you're like, oh, this might not work?
Well, Radius, we started in 2010. I think when you said 21 years, I've been in like operations.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm not one, because I'm so, I'm going to tell you what I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one, I can complain about something and say, man, that's bad, or I wish that wouldn't have happened. But never in me is like, okay, I'm going to quit. It's just one foot in front of the other. Just keep moving forward until my thought process, until somebody makes me quit.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's your only option if you say, because owning your own business is, I mean,
Oof.
it's, especially right now for you, it's just not easy.
Yeah.
And it's always, I've got a friend that always, will talk, and he'll say, man, you got it so easy because you're your own boss, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, you work he gets to work at 8 and gets off at 4:30. And I said, you don't think a thing about work after that. Right. I mean, it's pretty much the last thing I think about at night, and the first thing I'm thinking about in the morning when I get up. And, the only time I really don't think about work, and that's why I love it, is in jiu-jitsu. I don't really, even if I'm worrying about something going in there, at least for that hour, you're not sweating that stuff. But I'm not a quitter. Like, it's hard for me if I'm watching a bad TV show.
You were talking about this.
I just can't. I think I'm quitting because I'm like, well, I started. I need to.
Your wife's like, well, you're tired. Why don't you go to bed? You're like, I'm finishing this show.
15 minutes. I'm going to. And the big thing for me, like, my wife keeps so much off me, like other stressors that could be stressors.
Oh, me too.
She doesn't. She's great. She doesn't complain. And she's almost always trying to say, okay, what can I do to, and I just couldn't imagine having a wife that
was the opposite of that.
I don't know what I could say.
But somebody that wasn't that zone around you.
Because she sees it more as we're a team, not, me. And she's a school teacher, so she's always, she works harder than I do. And
is she going crazy through all this?
Oh, yes.
It's amazing. I have 2 boys under 6 at my house right now who I am like, let's get them to school.
She's ready to go.
And all the teachers are like, I just want my kids back. I just want my kids back in the room, They're special people because that shit is hard.
I don't know how she does it. When she grades papers at night, it's like she teaches 3rd grade, and like she may ask me to help her grade, And she's like, why didn't you mark this wrong? Because I wasn't a big school person. I didn't do very good in school. And it's just, she just takes it so serious.
Yeah.
And, we need those type teachers because they push kids.
Yes.
I would be a horrible teacher.
I would be as well. Because most of the kids I would try to be teaching had completed more grades than I did. So, so keep moving forward, friends and neighbors. Hey, so if you're anywhere around Tennessee, or no matter where you're at, if and I haven't talked about this a lot on the podcast, but if you're looking for something that and jiu-jitsu is interesting to you, you should check it out. And I also want to say, because I've had a few friends tell me this, that because I'm the kind of guy, if I'm working somewhere, if I'm on a certain record label or I'm on a team, or I shout it from the roof. I wear the shirt, I bang the drum, and you can't get me to shut up about it. Stoicism, all that. And my friends are getting tired of me talking about jiu-jitsu. But a couple of my friends said, well, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to try to get in shape before I come because, I want to be. And I'm like, dude, that's it. Stop making excuses. Right. Jiu-jitsu will get you in the shape you need to be in to do jiu-jitsu. And it'll change. If it's something you're interested in, if you like watching the UFC, if you like those kinds of things, if you go in with the right mindset of leaving your ego at the door, tapping when you get caught, tapping early, tapping often, the odds of, and I don't know the odds, but I haven't been hurt, and we roll hard. And I think it's just using common sense and finding a good, reputable gym. When I first started, I called a friend of mine who did MMA, and I said, man, I'm looking for a gym. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start, because some jiu-jitsu places are in like garage, like small strip malls. You never really know what's right. And he said, well, if there's a Checkmat around you, because they're a very reputable jiu-jitsu. And then, so I found Legion here in Hendersonville. But no matter where you are, if you're interested in it, go check it out, because it can change your life. And if you're anywhere around Middle Tennessee, or you're traveling through Middle Tennessee, and you do already do jiu-jitsu, stop in to one of the gyms. They've got 3 locations here, and it's just a great team, and everybody would love to have you. So big thanks to my buddy Jason Strickland for being on the show today. Too Dumb to Quit. Keep moving forward. Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. I love hanging with him. We have crazy text chains that it makes my day. But I really want to thank you for coming on and your insight into the business world, and continuing to tell people to not stop creating and to be too dumb to quit. And that was the one thing that always stuck with me, which is the reason I use it now. It was something Ron White told me. We were backstage. Is
that a soft brag?
It's soft brag, yeah. When I was tour managing Larry the Cable Guy at the height of his superstardom, hard brag, yeah. But no, Ron was backstage, and he asked me, kind of like, well, what are you going to end up doing? You just want to be a tour manager? And I'm like, nah, I'm actually, I want to get a record deal and do all this stuff. And Ron goes, well, I'll tell you something. It was an odd moment for Ron, because he was never this kind of a guy around me. But he was like, I didn't get on the Blue Collar Comedy Tour because I was the funniest guy in the country. He said there were so many better guys than me. I got on here because I was just too dumb to quit. When I should have quit, when everybody was telling me, you should just hang it up. He was like, there's that volcano starting to rumble, and he said, I never gave up. And that stuck with me through so many times of, touring in cars and rest stops and sleeping in weird hotel rooms and where you want to quit, constantly. But whatever you're doing, keep pushing through it. And it always reminds me of that a meme I saw once where there's a guy with like a pickaxe, and he quits right before the last strike where the gold is sitting behind it, So keep pushing forward. Big thanks, Jason Strickland. We love you. You're the coolest. Checkmat, check it out. Legion team here in Tennessee. And also Rev Training, if you're looking for personal training. Jason Santiago up there kicked my ass, all of our asses this morning. And he's wonderful, and he's a military vet. And and really, really inspiring dude too. So lots of stuff to check out. Make sure you're looking at jeremymccomb.com. Check out the tour dates whenever they let us do that shit again, which I'm looking forward to. Until then, friends and neighbors, I will talk to you next week on the 2Dumb2Quit podcast, where we'll have Jason come back, and I'm going to let him go home and analyze this data and see where I fell short this week. So,
thank you, sir.
Yeah, I love you. Yeah.